When I finally realised, when the ghost realisation bus literally hit me head on, and when I was shaken into the penny dropping timeline, it all made complete sense. Why on earth would I ever dream of getting into a car and driving to a place not knowing how to get there? What exact notions might be possibly lingering in my mind while throwing random ingredients into a bowl without really knowing where the dish would go? I'm a fan of improvising, and in fact I do prefer to stir up my own dishes, which a lot of the time turn out palatable enough. Although sometimes I tend to burn the mouth of my partner since I'm more of a spicy fan rather than him. But Asher, look, he's got a strong mouth because of it. Going for an aimlessly random walk or drive wouldn't be such an unusual thing to do, really, would it? It's a nice surprise when you end up somewhere lovely you've never ever been before. I love getting lost intentionally. But the question here is there any intention? Those are the ways I kind of used to live, in a roundabout way. I did my normal day-to-day things without setting an intention. Got up out of the bed, went to work, did my usual day-to-day task without any intention. Like the majority of the world, I reckon. My life wasn't too bad either. In fact, I'm generally fairly happy and pleased with the little things. I had nothing really very big to manage or anything unmanageable to complain about. So yeah, there's nothing that stood out that I could have changed at that time. Going back to the time when it all hit me, I wondered, after that, what would happen if I set an intention with everything I did from then on? Like, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen? No harm, sure. Everything might turn out way better than I expect. If I don't try, I won't know. And then one day I did it. It just happened. I set an intention outside of the usual intention setting scenarios, and the results blew me away. I set the intention before one of my classes, which actually flashed back me to the times when I would set intentions while working in sales. Back in the day when I used to work in Vodafone, back in Ireland. I remember I was a business account manager when I was probably in my 20s, I'd say. Just before I went travelling around Asia. I had completely forgotten about that. Sometimes I wonder how I lose these pieces of the puzzle so easily. I had that intention piece a long time ago. I obviously learned it with sales, or I don't know, but I definitely set an intention before I did my sales calls. So, one day I set the intention before one of my classes. For that class that I was about to start, I intended for it to be one of the best classes I'd ever taught and coached, because my classes were a mixture of English teaching and business coaching and meeting facilitation and presentation preparation, confidence building, and all of that. So there's a mixture. What happened in that class was like a super agile, inspiration-filled me. A me that felt like I'd been channeling a higher energy of some divine brilliance. I'm not even joking. I blew my own socks off. I was on an absolute high after class. And then I thought, what did I actually do before now? I started to reflect on the times I hadn't set an intention. The classes I taught, the days I woke up, the arguments I had, things I've forgotten to do or buy or go, or people I forgot to ring or see. And it's not just about forgetting things on your to-do list. It's literally about being more mindful. When we're setting intentions, we're being mindful in the present moment, and we're in the zone about what we want to do and how we want to get there and how we'll get there. More pennies started dropping like showers of rain. Then I started to go down the extreme route I usually took and worry about forgetting to set the intention. Now that I've committed to an intention setting life, how could I possibly remind myself to do it every day? And then I was thinking, you sometimes you just catch yourself out worrying about things that you really shouldn't worry about. But I suppose we're all human, and that happens easily. After getting such great results, I can't live any other way. I just loved the results that came, and it seemed so easy. But as I reflected, I realized that intentions have been secretly trying to get into my life for a long time now. Through yoga YouTubers, I just said yoga YouTubers, meditations, healing modality practices, anything that was along spiritual, taking care of your body, anything in that kind of area. And I always took it as something that wasn't a day-to-day thing, I always remember as well when I was doing a YouTube yoga session, the yoga instructor just asking whoever is listening on YouTube to set the intention and the kind of intention we'd like to get from the yoga session. So when you're at the start of the yoga session, the facilitator would say, let's take a moment in silence. I'm sure everybody here knows what happens at the beginning of a yoga session, but I'm just going to refresh your memory. And he or she would say, let's just take a moment to remember why we're here. Let's set the intention of how we'd like this session to turn out and how you'd like your day to pan out. And I just imagined that was a part of yoga. And then I noticed that the more healing modalities I studied and facilitated into my healing sessions with my clients, the more intention setting I came across, which I just accepted as part of those processes. I'm actually really good at accepting things without asking any questions. Sometimes I can't stop asking questions, but that's a different story for another day. So yes, I always accepted an intention as part of something spiritual or healing, until that light bulb moment, day, where I actually remembered, rather than come up with the idea to set the intention before the class. I remember vividly thinking, I used to do this, like I just said before. And then I asked myself that same question, how did I forget? And since that day, well, besides setting the intentions before my sales calls, I've actually never looked back. What I've noticed is that setting an intention before everything we do helps me anyway, become presently mindful with myself and be in the now. Setting an intention has facilitated me getting better results in everything I do. Even before I recorded this episode for my podcast, I honestly set the intention that I'm going to provide the most valuable information, based on my true story. And this is what is happening. Setting intentions in my work still happens in every part of my work, not just my teaching and coaching, but also my healing work, my hypnosis, which is a huge, huge part. It's really difficult to have a targeted hypnosis session without an intention. It's like searching for a needle in a haystack or running around chasing your tail. There's the intention is really important in those scenarios. But what about setting an intention of how you want a conversation to go? Or what about setting an intention of how you'd like to sleep that night? Or before you get into the car in the morning and you set the intention that you're going to arrive at work as calmly as possible. Even if there is traffic or even if there isn't, it's going to be a nice journey. And that's even if you're in a rush or, time is limited. Because when we're in the present moment, setting an intention and being mindful about the future, things generally flow a lot easier. In my experience anyway. And I love the way I'm always giving the analogy of a car, getting into the car and driving all around, because I actually don't drive. Well, I'm learning to drive in Spain at the moment, and yeah, I used to have a car when I lived in Ireland back in my 20s, but then I kind of traveled all around the world. When I say all around the world, I moved to Australia and traveled around Asia and lived in Spain, but I always lived in cities, so I let my kind of driver's license expire, and now I have to do it all again, which is okay. I'm being mindful about it, and it's good to learn the roads and it's good to learn the rules of the road in Spain, which are quite different to Ireland. Another thing that setting intentions has really improved is my relationship with myself and improved relationships with my friends and family. One thing I regret not doing this year, 2023, at Christmas, was setting an intention before Christmas. I found Christmas quite stressful this year. So I think it's because of a lack of setting intentions. And especially when I wake up in the morning, if I find that I don't, it's like plan your day, you plan your work schedule. We plan our to-do list, well, some people do. And why don't we plan the way our day is going to go and set a good intention? I'm sure a lot of people do, but I'm wondering, why haven't we always done it? Obviously, the more advanced we are, the more tips we find and the more magic we pull out of our sleeves. But yeah, it's just, I always ask myself different questions. How come we didn't, and why? And why didn't it happen before now? But anyway, now I'm wondering, how many of you out there live intentionally? Have you ever tried setting intentions in your normal mundane tasks, like cleaning the house? Oh, this is another one. When my boyfriend and I are cleaning the house, we generally argue because it's usually me saying, oh, you have to do it this way. That's just probably a bit of control that I try my best to release as well. But I have started to set an intention to not argue about the cleaning anymore. Now, be careful. I just caught myself doing something that I shouldn't. We have to set the intention in a positive affirmation. So if I say, right, I intend to clean the house effortlessly and easily and as happy as possible with calmness, and that's it. Can you notice that I've used positive words instead of saying I intend to not fight? Because that energy, the universe hears what you're saying, but they don't hear the not. So they hear fight. And I don't have an explanation for this. All I know is that I should really look into this and let you know about the rules of the universe after. But I've always been taught, and I've always learned throughout the years, that when we're trying to manifest something or intend or want something, it should be said in the future, because the universal energy doesn't hear the no. They hear the words, but not the negative. So you can attract negative words by saying negative. Actually, that's the explanation right there. Sorry. So the explanation is, sorry. So yes, for imagine, I said, I intend to not fight throughout cleaning the house today. As far as I know, the universal law of energy and the universal law of attraction states that negative attracts negative and positive attracts positive. So if we're saying sentences in the negative, we might possibly attract those negative sentences in. For example, I don't want any rude people in my life. Well, that is a negative energy that you're giving out there, so you're going to attract that negative energy, if that makes any sense at all. I'm sure all of you all know this, but it's very interesting actually. And it's hard sometimes to keep yourself in the positive, but it's a matter of mindful thinking and intending to be mindful when we are thinking. Another question I have for you all out there is regarding relationships and anything else in your life other than the usual intention setting rituals like yoga and meditation and healing and hypnosis if you're into that kind of hobby. I'd call it more of a healing modality actually. But anyway, do you set intentions in your day-to-day tasks? Do you set them at work? Do you set intentions in general? I'd love to know your story. I'd love to know how they work for you, if they don't work for you, if you've ever tried. Let me know and I'd absolutely be delighted to have a chat about it. In the notes, you can even put it in the notes in Spotify, or you can go onto my website, you can catch me on Instagram and have a chat. I'd love to hear your voices and your words. Another thing I'd love to know from you all is if you're a fan of New Year's resolutions. Some people are allergic to this word and that's okay, because there is a lot of that sentence carries a lot of weight sometimes, depending on the person and how they feel. You know, we all have different experiences, but what's your opinion about New Year's resolutions, and do you associate them with the start of the year, or do you generally set yearly or monthly or quarterly resolutions, or do you do them at all? I'd love to hear your opinion about those and what you think, and if you've tried and failed, or if you've tried and succeeded, or if you've any tips. And in fact, I'd love to invite somebody onto this podcast to tell us how you manage to achieve any resolutions or any manifestations. In fact, that would be lovely. A lovely presence and a lovely topic to talk about on the podcast. So get in touch. So this brings me to the end of this episode. The episode is quite short today, but it's a message that I've actually downloaded to communicate to everyone out there who are interested in intentionally living. Sometimes I get these inspirational ideas, and it really is like a light bulb moment. It's like ping, I'm like, okay, I need to podcast on this, and then it just flows. So thank you so much for listening, everyone out there. I wish you an intentional month, intentional and mindful month, and the start of 2024. I wish you a wonderful week. Cheerio.